How much can I spend in retirement? Simple question, complicated answer. It's hard to predict the future, so the answer hinges on what you're going to prioritize and what trade-offs you're willing to live with. It can feel daunting, so you might be tempted to default to a rule of thumb, become overly conservative, or rely on what someone close to you might have done. The most common answer you'll find is the rule of 4%. It's not a bad starting point. The idea is pretty simple. If you have $1 million, you take $40,000 out in year one, adjust it every year for inflation, and the money should last 30 years. Easy to understand, easy to remember, and it was built to survive some brutal markets. You can begin to see why it's so commonly used. But it has two problems that don't get talked about enough. But first, I'm Nick Morrison, a CFP based in Raleigh, North Carolina. For the last 15 years, I've helped people navigate the transition into retirement, enjoying your money and making it last. That's the balance that so many are after. But make decisions that don't reflect your priorities, and you're asking for regret. All right, let's get into it. So the first problem with the 4% rule is that it may not fit your circumstances at all. Imagine this. You want to retire early at 62, but you plan to delay taking Social Security until 67 or even 70. So that's several years with no paycheck coming in and living entirely off your savings. It's very easy that during that period, you could be well over the 4% rule. That could lead you to think that early retirement is not doable, or that you have to cut back drastically, or that you need to get a part-time job. The second problem, studies show a large number of retirees end retirement with significantly more in assets than when they started retirement. On the surface, that sounds like a win, but think about what that means. That means they spent 30 years in retirement living below their means, skipping trips, perhaps not providing support to their kids and grandkids when they need it most. They spent time saying no when they didn't have to. Here's something you may not be aware of. Since 1950, the S&P 500 has been positive roughly 3 out of every 4 years, or 75% of the time. And when the market is up, oftentimes it's up big. There have been plenty of years when the market is up 20, 30%. Now, most retirees are not going to have everything in the market. But those numbers still tell us something important. It highlights the growth potential that is mostly working in your favor. Now, we all know how painful markets can be when things are going poorly. When you are working, a bad year is painful, but it doesn't directly impact your lifestyle, and you're still making contributions along the way, allowing you to buy additional shares at a discount. Time was your ally. In retirement, you're not adding money anymore, you're taking it out. Bad markets can directly impact your lifestyle and make it harder to recover from. It's the fear of those bad periods that causes so many retirees to underspend, and some by quite a lot. And then life happens on top of that. Perhaps you need to replace your roof, an unexpected car expense, or maybe there's a health expense you have to deal with. Big unexpected expenses are just as big of a part of retirement as they were during your working years. So if the 4% rule doesn't fit your vision of retirement, or worried that it'll lead you to say no more than you have to, what's the alternative? And how do you protect yourself from bad markets? A guardrail approach starts with one simple idea. Instead of setting a fixed withdrawal amount that doesn't change, you set an income level that can flex within limits that you set in advance before markets do anything and before emotions run high. Here's how that works in practice. Let's say you have $1 million. The traditional 4% would say take out $40,000. Historical research suggests that you can take closer to 5 to 5.5%. That's an extra $10,000 to $15,000 a year starting from day one. Now here's the part that makes it different. You set 2 guardrails around that income. The upper guardrail tells you when markets have been good enough that you can increase your income, and by how much. So one very common scenario, let's say your portfolio grows, the upper guardrail is triggered, you might increase your income by 10%. The lower guardrail is the other side of that. It lets you know when you need to cut back and by how much if your portfolio starts to drop. And even if a cut is the first guardrail that gets triggered, you often are in a place where your spending is still higher than if you had started with the traditional 4%. The key is having this in place before markets get rocky and emotions run high. Done right, this approach can meaningfully increase what you spend in retirement while remaining responsible. And it gives you a concrete way to evaluate big decisions. an unexpected big expense, a major purchase. Let's say you want to buy an RV or a beach house. Instead of wondering if you can afford it, you can evaluate the impact to your plan if you do. Now, before you get too comfortable with this idea, let's talk about the downside. It's really important to understand how much room you have in your budget to cut back if you really had to. If you think you could responsibly cut $3,000 a month, you need to identify where in the budget that could happen. And if you're married, do this with your spouse. You don't want to find out mid-retirement that you had very different ideas of what was optional. Here's something interesting. Research shows that during major market downturns, households naturally cut back anyway. Less going out to eat, less travel or smaller trips, not because a financial plan told them to, just instinctively. But when a lower guardrail gets triggered, you don't want to be figuring out what to cut for the first time. So before you retire, or right now, if you're close, go through your budget. Be honest with yourself, because what you discover in that exercise is going to tell you something important, and not just about your budget. It's going to let you know if this is a realistic option for you to consider. This approach was designed to balance the tension between wanting to enjoy your money and make sure it lasts. One that understands how powerful markets can be, takes seriously what a bad sequence can do, and leaves room for flexibility. Simple question: how much can I spend in retirement? And the answer is probably more than you think, but requires a plan for the inevitable bumps in the road. If you want to go deeper on how this applies to your specific situation, I've included a link below. And if you found this video helpful, I put together videos designed to help you prepare for retirement and enjoy what you worked so hard to build. Till next time.